I was a little worried whenever our manager put in our two worst defenders. Kind of felt like he was shooting us in the foot a little bit. Really helps whenever the other team shoots both of their feet and both of their kneecaps out. What's up, guys, and welcome to the Blues and Stripes. So really not much to talk about for this one. It was a very comfortable win. Really helps that Ajax went down to 10 men and also gave us 2 penalties. Really pathetic performance from them, and honestly would not be shocked if we heard about Heidinger being out of a job pretty soon. Doesn't feel like he will be based on some of what the commentator was saying, but yeah, they were awful tonight. And thank goodness too, because I do want to talk a little bit about Maresca's lineup, just because looking at it, thankfully, there was no Gusto. That was one thing I was really worried about, that he was going to put Gusto in despite the fact that he's been awful, got himself stupidly sent off on the weekend. So it was nice to see that he didn't put him in. And while I do think putting Caicedo back there, it does work in matches like these against weaker teams at home, I think Caicedo can play that right back inverting into the middle. So I think it was fine, but Fofana and Tosin as your back two makes no sense. I don't mind seeing Hato because it gives Cucurella a break. I would like to see a little bit more consistency in our back line going forward. But of the rotation, I think Fofana and Tosin doesn't make sense, because Tosin's not been good so far this season, and Fofana, he's still coming back from injury, he still looks way out of it, and he's already not that good to begin with. So it was a back two that really scared me. Thankfully, weren't tested that much tonight. But also Jorgensen in goal. I don't understand that decision either. He was pathetic against Lincoln. This is the Champions League. You can't be putting in this guy who is very prone to be making mistakes. It doesn't make any sense, and it sets us up for failure. And if not for the fact that Ajax did themselves in tonight, this could have been a bit of a rougher match for us. But outside that, I thought most of his other decisions were fine. Having Fernandez and Lavia in the middle, Gittins on the left, I understand he's trying to give Gittins and Garnacho a chance to grow into the team. I just personally don't think either of them have done enough to justify starting at this point. Buonanotte, I do love seeing him in the middle just because I think he needs some more time, even though he is a player that's on loan. There's a chance we could try to pick him up next summer, and he's had a couple of decent performances so far, so I like to see him given some time. Estevao on the right, I love seeing him getting time. And then Guillou up top, it's a good decision there. So really from the midfield up, I thought those were good decisions, but that back line really did scare me. And it's something I've talked about before with Maresca, but it feels like he doesn't really know how to balance his team whenever it comes to doing multiple competitions. Like, there does need to be some rotation, but if you rotate too much, it can cause a lot of disjointed performances. It can cause a lot of issues defensively, attacking-wise. So it's something that I think he needs to improve on if we want to be at the top, be winning trophies. But outside of his lineup, I thought how we played tonight was really well done. Again, having Caicedo move into the midfield from right back, it did give us more numbers in there, which allowed us to keep the pressure on them pretty much the entire match. His subs were a little early, but I liked the players that he brought on. I think it gave some rest to some players who are probably going to be featuring this weekend, and also it gave a few minutes to some players that do need to get some more time on the pitch. But looking at individuals, this is one of those games where it's hard to really judge individual players because we weren't really tested, and it was a pretty simple match, and almost everybody had at least a good match. For instance, Jorgensen in goal. Can't really say much about him because there's not much he had to do tonight. He had 1 penalty to save, did well to read it, guess the right way. Maybe could have done a little bit more to push it away, but I'm not going to hold it against him that he didn't save a penalty. In the back line, Fofana thought looked okay, made some good defensive clearances. There were a couple moments when he got caught unawares, which is kind of typical for him, but for the most part, he really wasn't tested. Tosin obviously had the mistake that led to the penalty, which was disappointing for him. Outside of that, he didn't really have any issues. Hato, I thought, looked good on the left side, and he's really growing into the team a little bit, which I like to see because we don't really have a left-sided center back. He is an option. I think he's showing with his recent performances he's somebody we can rely on. So it's something I hope Maresca does think about, because we do need somebody on that left side that is accustomed to playing the left side of center defense. Because while I think Chalobah, I think Tosin, they can do that job fine, it is different. If you've never played in defense, you may not realize, but it is different to be a right-sided center back playing on the left side or vice versa, because you're not really accustomed to the clearances from that side, tackles from that side, showing players one way or another on that side. It's a very different mindset and a very different style that you have to get used to. So the fact that Colwill's out and then Badiashile is obviously out for a while, which I don't really rate him anyway, even if he was available, I think Hato is going to be useful going forward if Maresca will just give him the time and the trust. Caicedo from right back into the midfield, once again, looked phenomenal. Got himself a goal too, so he's just racking up the numbers right now. Lavia, I thought, looked pretty comfortable in the midfield. I said it on the weekend against Forest. I think he's a lot more accustomed to playing alongside Caicedo, so he doesn't have to be the defensive breakup. He doesn't have to be the distributor. He can just get on the ball and run with it. That's what he wants to do. And he had a lot of time to do that today, and I think he looked very effective because of it. Fernandez as well, he was allowed to be more of an 8 today instead of having to play in the 10 role. And I think that looks so much more comfortable for him because he's allowed to make those box crashing runs from deep that I think he's very effective at. So for both Lavia and Fernandez, I thought their performances today showed what they can do whenever they're given the correct positioning on the field, instead of Maresca forcing them into a position that they're not really comfortable playing. Estevao on the right side, obviously a great performance from the youngster again. Maybe he could have had a couple more goals. If he had scored the bike, that would have been just a wonderful cap to his performance, because he was probably our most dangerous player of the front four. And that's not taking anything away from the other three. I think he's just so clever on the ball, and he's wanting to be in possession. He's wanting to take players on. So he's so often available. I think because of that, that is why he tends to look more dangerous than the other three that are up there with him. So it's very exciting to have such a young player who is so ready and so willing to run for the team and create these opportunities as well. Buonanotte in the center, I thought, looked really good again. He's not been phenomenal. I don't think he's near Palmer's level at this point, so I don't think he's going to really replace him at the 10. But he's a player that we can rely on in some matches. I think he's got some cleverness to his game. He's very good at playing a quick little 1-2, turning out of a challenge. Obviously, he took the challenge that got the red card for Ajax tonight. So he's a player that I do think we need to rely on a bit more. I don't know if there's a plan to make the move permanent for him in the summer. I know there's no option to buy, so it would be we actually have to pay for the transfer. But I would like to see what he could do if given a bit more time and a bit more license to play from Maresca, especially in the Premier League too, because we've only really seen him play in a couple of matches that are not quite Premier League quality. So he's one to keep an eye on, in my opinion. And then Gittins on the left side, I thought looked a lot more comfortable tonight. He's not really started Premier League life very well. He doesn't feel like he's willing to take on the defenders, and even when he does, he loses out on a lot of those battles. But tonight he was getting a lot more victories up against the fullback. Had a couple of decent crosses in as well that were dangerous. I think he also assisted Caicedo for his goal. So overall, a better performance from him, and I hope this can give him a bit of confidence to take into the Premier League matches, and hopefully we can see him grow. And then finally, Guillaume up top, I thought was very solid. A lot of people will point out that his performances over the past 2 matches have given Maresca some confidence in him, and I think this is going to be another performance that does raise that confidence level in Maresca and will allow him to trust him a bit more readily. Because I do think right now, based on what we have, based on the fact that there's no Palmer, there's no Delap, I think Guillaume up top and Pedro at the 10 might be our best option at the moment. I personally would like to see Estevao at the 10 and Pedro up top, but I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon, since it does feel like Maresca wants to play Estevao on the right side. But yeah, good to see Guillaume get himself a goal too, but it's mostly his work rate, I think, that is really impressing me. As far as the subs that came on, Chalobah came on at halftime. I thought he looked pretty comfortable back there, made some good defensive challenges. Passing still a little wayward at times, but for the most part, he looked fine. Santos also came on at halftime, and he took that box crashing role that Fernandez had in the first half, and I think that's something that he can do pretty well, so I would like to see him given some more time doing that. Again, he looked uncomfortable at the 10 over the weekend, so something I hope that Maresca looks at and gives him that ability to play in the box crashing 8 role. And then George came on up top. Good to see him get the goal, but once again, I feel like he's much more used to being on the wing, and I think we saw that. At one point, Estevao looked like he pushed inside and let George play out on the right side, and even though I think he's a lot more comfortable on the left, George still had a couple of good moments in the match where he put in some good crosses, some dangerous crosses. So it's something that I think Maresca does need to trust him a bit more on, is allowing him to play in his more natural position on that left side, especially because, as I said before, Gittins and Garnacho have not really impressed enough to justify starting them. But I think the main thing for George is, even though he's not a striker, he still works very hard, and that's something that is useful to us up top, kind of what Guillaume was giving us in the first half. So I think that's why Maresca does want to try him out up there. But personally, from what I saw from him today on that right wing, I think he does want to be running down the line, taking on fullbacks and trying to put crosses in, more so than he wants to be up top chasing down every single ball. But then Achapon came in, I thought looked comfortable on the right side. It allowed Caicedo to get a break as well, so that was another good result of this sub. But he's a player that has a lot of confidence, and since James is obviously not going to play every match, and I think Gusto has shown he just is not enough quality to start for us at this level, and especially if we're going to try to make a run at possibly being title contenders, or even just trying to win a trophy. I don't think you can rely on Gusto. Achampong, we know he can play on the right side. He's somebody that maybe needs to be relied on a bit more going forward. And while he's done fine at center back, I think right back is a lot more his natural position. So it's something that I think Maresca needs to look at going forward. And then the final sub was Reggie Walsh, and I thought he looked very comfortable in there for only being 17 years old. He had a decent performance last season at 16 too. Unfortunately, I think the problem for Walsh is that not only is he young, but also we have so many good midfielders. You think about Caicedo, Fernandez, Lavia, Esugo when he comes back, Santos as well. Even James can play in there. There's a lot of options. It's hard to see where he's going to fit in. So I think he had another really good performance, especially for his age too. He had a lot of great touches, kept the ball moving really well. I think there was also a moment he could have had an assist if the finish had been better from, I think, George. Unfortunately, I just don't think he's going to be getting into the first team anytime soon, but he's definitely a player that in the future I think we'll be able to rely on, especially if the rumors are true and Real Madrid come offering for Fernandez. He would be a good option to bring in there that could probably take that role. But all in all, good, comfortable win. Nothing really to worry about here. This weekend will be a bit tougher because Sunderland are in a good run of form. But I'm hoping these wins are giving us the momentum we need to get back into that title, at least contention. As I said, I don't think we're going to win the title this season, but I would prefer to see us at least in that race and not fighting for a top 4 spot, just being in the top 4. But those are all of my thoughts, so let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, or your thoughts on the game today. Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea previews, reviews, and talks. And until next time, hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.